The member for York South Western.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. I have stood in this House on many occasions and spoke of how young people and families in my fine community of York South Western can no longer afford to stay living in the neighbourhoods they were raised in. The cost of buying a new home or renting an apartment is simply not affordable. On this side of the House, we have offered many solutions to the housing crisis, and we have been ignored, just like this government ignored many of the recommendations of their own housing task force. With prices skyrocketing, families in my riding need affordable housing. Why is this Premier failing to address the need for such housing in communities like York South Western?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Well, Speaker, through you to the honourable member, you're the MPP for York South Western. Your federal colleague in your own riding is the federal housing minister. And I would think of all New Democrats that sit in this chamber, that there be one New Democrat that would actually come forward and agree with us when we're asking the federal government for our fair share of an extra $480 million. So here's something that the member opposite can do for me and can do for residents in his riding, and that's make that overture. You know, some New Democrat has got to stand up for more dollars and the fact that we need our fair share to build more affordable housing in our ridings. The other thing that I could, through you, Speaker, that I could suggest to the honourable member is that when we table a housing initiative, like we did with More Homes, More Choice in 2019, our Housing Action Plan, that when we do measures that result in more shovels in the ground to help this crisis, that the member would break away from his party, that the member would stand up for the residents of York South Western and vote for
Order. Supplementary.
Well, the member is out of order, and he is the Minister of Housing responsible for Ontario. Back to the Premier. So many families see home ownership as out of reach because of these high prices, and yet their rents are going up even more as well. I have raised the case of tenants in my community facing massive rent increases if they change units, and of the issues of above guideline rent increases being abused and used as a tool to jack up rents, in some cases as much as 73%. With half of the population in my community residing in apartments, I hear regularly of their struggles with affordability. This government ended rent control on all new units when they arrived in office in 2018, which is the responsibility of this minister, which has led to devastating rent increases for families. Why is this government, Mr. Speaker, refusing to bring back real rent control and close the loopholes that empower landlords to evict good tenants and allow rents to skyrocket?
Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, come to order. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to reply.
Mr. Speaker, this member has zero credibility on the issue that he just asked. The NDP, when we as a government put forward a bill that required landlords to make efforts to renegotiate a repayment agreement if the tenant had rent arrears, that member voted no. When we increased fines under the Residential Tenancies Act to $50,000 to an individual and $250,000 for a corporation in terms, they voted against it. When we asked that landlords disclose to the Landlord-Tenant Board whether they've ever filed for a rent eviction, this NDP voted no. When we actually, and this, I can't believe this, Speaker, when we increased tenant compensation for bad faith evictions, allowing the Landlord-Tenant Board to give another 12 months rent to that tenant. Again, I can't believe the NDP voted no. Every time this government puts in place protections for tenants, this NDP says one thing. This is Andrea Horvath's problem. She says one thing and then...
Yeah, I'm going to ask the member to withdraw.
Withdraw.